Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bituation Room podcast live stream situation thing. I attempted to dress up my outfit with a necklace and it's backfired because my mic is covering it. These are the important things I think about. It's the small things we can distract ourselves with as the world turns even worse than it was the day before. Thank you so much for being here, for pressing play, for listening in the future, for listening in the present, for listening in the past. We have a great show today. Maia Szalavitz is back. She is an author and a contributing opinion writer for the New York Times. She's written a bunch of books, including Undoing Drugs, The Untold Story of Harm Reduction, and The Future of Addiction. She is back on the show. We had her on, I think, maybe over a year ago, speaking about the fentanyl crisis. And now it's being solved by Donald Trump. So I'm very excited to hear her excitement, I'm sure, at all of the things Trump is doing for the opioid epidemic. So, no, in real talk, I'm nervous and scared, and also RFK Jr. is going to make all of this worse. So, we are going to be bringing her in actually very soon because we're going to do our show today kind of it's going to be like an open-faced podcast. It's going to be very different. It's a deconstructed podcast. We're going to put all the pieces and then sort of eat them, out of order, if you will. So tuck in. And because later we're going to talk tariffs, stonks, and yes, the disappearing of a Columbia grad student who is now being held in Louisiana by the Department of Homeland Security. So we're going to do all that with a good friend and comedian, Jessica Sele. I'm very excited because we need a little bit of levity. Yes, Matt Lee bowed out the last minute because he is sick, and I need him to stop whining. And so I do not want to give him more work because there's just a lot of I don't feel good. Yeah, I'm sick all the time. All right. But guess what we do as moms? We power through. Just kidding. Love you, babe. If you're here, I hope that you have subscribed to this show on YouTube. I hope you're following it on Twitch. I hope that you might even become a member on YouTube or a member on Twitch and get access to all of the Wednesday bonus episodes, or my personal preference and fave, patreon.com/bituationroom. Become an official, formal part of the Frantifa, a patron. Patreon.com/bituationroom is where you go. You get tons of perks, discounts on merch, 25% off our sponsor, discounts on the American Prospect magazine. I've got a new column coming out. Very excited about that. It's real stupid, so I hope you guys enjoy it. And access to our Ask Me Anythings. And of course, again, every Wednesday is available for everyone to watch and listen back in your eye holes, in your ear holes, in whatever holes. Look, that's between you and the podcast. I don't judge. I just do content. So before I bring Maia in, I also want to remind you, if you're watching on YouTube, become a subscriber right now, like and share the stream right now. And if you're listening as a podcast, you can give the podcast for free, 5 stars. No money involved, just helps people discover the show. Finally, if you're in Sacramento this Sunday, Matt and I are going to be doing a co-headlining set at the Punchline. Get tickets for that. Really excited to see folks there. And on May 7th, which is a Wednesday, we will be at Cobb's Comedy in San Francisco. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everybody. We'll be there. Get your tickets. They are on sale, as are tickets for the Wednesday, March 26th show in Pasadena. I call New World Disorder. Trey Crowder is going to be there. James Adomian is going to be there. It's going to be so good. So you can get tickets for all of those shows wherever you're watching this. And final. If you're not watching me Tuesdays and Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific for America Unhinged, what are you doing? We had an amazing cybersecurity analyst, former cybersecurity analyst, who was summarily fired by Doggy on Thursday. He came on. He thinks he was retaliated against politically. So youtube.com/Zateo is where you go to watch all that later. Not right now. Not right now. Right now, we do this show. Right now, we do this show. All right. So tuck in. Let's get into it. This is The Sitch. Joining me for The Sitch, contributing opinion writer for the New York Times, author of the book Undoing Drugs, The Untold Story of Harm Reduction and the Future of Addiction. Please welcome Maia Szalavitz. Hi, Maia.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. I feel like the last time you were on, we were in the midst of the Adderall shortage, which was also affecting my household. And there was we're so much better now. Now everything's fine. No, but we were talking about, God, a bunch of things, and now so much hasn't changed and in fact gotten worse. But I guess the one thing I wanted to pick up on from the thread and I have a bunch of questions for you, but the thread we left last time was, you, I think, very succinctly explained the ways in which the use of opioids or street drugs like fentanyl had to do with the kind of whiplash of rescinding, Oxycontin scripts, and obviously the overprescription of an opioid ultimately that was a pharmaceutical. And we all know that was bad, but also so is not having any kind of treatment, rather completely, making it inaccessible to folks who are addicted. And now we have RFK Jr. at the head of HHS. And I just wanted to ask you, because one of the things I've been saying, on Piers Morgan or wherever, is that I'm very concerned about him possibly rescinding antidepressant scripts. And, I can just throw this up here. This is from The Hill. He's claimed that serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, can be more addictive than heroin, which he is a longtime recovering addict, and has falsely linked them to school shootings. He avoided denouncing the belief about shootings during his confirmation hearing, only saying, quote, "I don't think anybody can answer that question." I think they can. And he also said nothing's going to be off limits when it comes to scrutinizing things like antidepressants. He named childhood vaccine schedules, psychiatric drugs, and environmental issues. We've talked a lot about the vaccines, and all that, but like the psychiatric meds, can you just explain whether I have cause to be concerned about what impact this could do when you limit the accessibility of SSRIs, or what is your take?
It's just a terrible idea. When we stopped so-called overprescribing of opioids, when we cut back the prescribing by about half, overdose rates quadrupled. If there was a chart I was just looking at this morning that shows the rate when we were in the height of the prescription opioid crisis, and it's minuscule compared to what we have seen from cutting people off of the drugs and arriving at fentanyl.
Right.
The good news is that we are finally starting to see some decline in the overdose death rate. The bad news is that probably a significant proportion of that decline has to do with the fact that most of the people at risk are probably already dead. And that is just super depressing. And, people in the field have just lost so many family members, friends, lovers, partners, people,
Yeah.
100,000 a year for the last few years.
Insane.
So yeah, it's absolutely crazy. And in the days of the prescription opioid crisis, it was about 20 to 30,000 a year. So still horrible. Obviously, we shouldn't be, losing people to this, but much, much worse. And when you cut people off from prescription medications, which for all their flaws, we have an FDA for a reason. We have an FDA because otherwise people sell poison to you, as we can see in the fentanyl crisis.
Yes.
And we have an FDA so that you know the dose and the purity of what you're taking. There's a saying that regulations are written in blood. This is really clear from drug regulations. And when you do things like take away medications that are working for people, you end up harming them a lot.
Yeah.
Now, what's crazy with the situation with SSRIs, and I'm probably a person who's going to get sent to a work camp for my Prozac addiction. um, but that's a complete misunderstanding of what addiction is.
Yeah.
Addiction is compulsive drug use despite negative consequences. Dependence is physically needing something to function. If you're we're all dependent on like air and food and water. Dependence isn't a problem if the stuff keeps you alive.
Mhm.
Dependence is a problem if people are trying to get between you and the substance, or if the substance is harming you. And
Mhm.
so when you confuse addiction and dependence, you can make stupid statements like Prozac is more addictive than heroin. First of
Right.
all, the withdrawals from opioids are actually worse than from SSRIs, but that's not to say that you cannot have withdrawals from SSRIs. The thing about it is, I forget to take my Prozac sometimes.
Right, right.
I never forgot to take my heroin. Right? And
There you
that's
go.
the difference in a nutshell right there. Like nobody's at this point, nobody's robbing drugstores to get Prozac. But if you take it away from the people that it is standing between their depression and their functioning, you may see that, but not in the way that you would see with something like an opioid.
Right, and it might turn folks to even illicit drugs, right? If you can't get a prescription for an antidepressant or you can't fulfill your script, like you could go to street drugs or relapse or whatever it might be. I don't know. I'm saying like if you
No, I
were
mean,
an addict.
absolutely. Yes. No, I mean, people with addiction, it's quite clear if you cut them off from opioids, for example, methadone and buprenorphine, which are used for treatment, those cut the death rate in half. If you take away those medications, you are doubling the death rate. And, he hasn't explicitly spoken about taking away those medications, but he hasn't been promoting them. And frankly, when you have two medications that cut the death rate from something as lethal as opioid addiction, the most lethal condition in psychiatry, more lethal than anorexia or anything else, and you want to take away the stuff that cuts the death rate in half. Now, we don't have as clear figures for like somebody like me who has depression, and that depression was like underlying my opioid addiction. But I would imagine that if you take people's antidepressants away, you will see more suicide and you will see more overdose deaths as people relapse. And it's quite clear, for example, that when people were concerned that antidepressants were being overprescribed to teenagers,
Mhm.
and that this was increasing their risk of suicide.
Mhm.
And they put a black box warning on it now, to say, hey, this could potentially increase the risk. After they did that, prescribing fell and suicide increased. Um,
Hmm.
so now this is not to say that there aren't rare instances in which SSRIs can make some people either suicidal or even potentially more violent because of a condition called akathisia that often happens. When it happens, it tends to happen right when you start taking the medication.
Mhm.
So if you want to prevent this problem, monitor people when they start the medication. And if they show any signs of this, stop the medication. This will solve this problem. The thing about antidepressants and actually opioids, like people just have an enormous variety of responses to medications. So
Yeah,
I might take opioids and they make me feel warm and safe and loved. You might take it and it makes you feel numb and nauseous and awful.
sure.
And similarly with an SSRI, it might make you, I'm somebody who's sort of naturally bouncing off the ceiling with intensity. It calms me down.
Right. But
But
this is
yeah, go ahead.
I mean, this is part and parcel of, this maha like wellness BS, which is the idea that everything's synthetic, even though these drugs are created from nature and from science, that everything synthetic is bad. And all we need to do is like cod liver oil our way out of depression. And I'm sure, you and many others can attest to the fact that that's not going to work for them. So I think it's also this obsession with children, in my opinion, that comes first. When it comes to anti-trans stuff, it's this obsession with children. And yet really, as we see in states, like Florida and others, which are blocking hormone, gender affirming care for all trans people, like it's really not about meds for children. It's about all people. It's about this ideology that any pharmaceuticals are bad for you because yes,
Except
we all
ivermectin.
right,
Ivermectin will,
and Ozempic.
well, no, he's opposed to Ozempic.
Was he anti? Oh, but
Yeah.
pro steroids, I guess,
Oh, right. Yes.
and hormones.
Testosterone for men, okay. Women, illegal.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh my god.
Or trans
You wanna
people.
you wanna see a revolution, yeah, strip away all the hormones from, menopausal women.
Oh my God. Well, also, like, I really, one of the things that's scary in the many, many, many scary things is that the DEA wants a national registry of everybody's prescriptions.
Excuse
Um,
me? I'm sorry, could you just what?
yeah, the DEA wants a national registry of everybody's controlled substance prescriptions. So if you're fine with estrogen because that's not controlled, testosterone is controlled, as are anti-anxiety meds like Xanax and opioids, etc., and stimulants for ADHD, etc. Um, I always say that if you want to think about this clearly, let's put Viagra on that national registry.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They will stop it for privacy concerns when it comes to a drug like that. When it comes to things that other people might be embarrassed about, no, no, no. They want to know, and they want to be, inside our data and, using things to be able to abuse people, basically.
Use them, criminalize them, right? I mean, this happens all the time. I guess I wanna talk about, before we move on from the decrease in, fentanyl deaths, overdose deaths, which you wrote about at the end of last year for the New York Times. Um, you I wanna just ask you to explain a little bit more about why it's not necessarily a good sign. It's not because, as you write, there's a lot of access to treatments like methadone, and other things. It's not that, but can you explain a little bit more about, like, where the decrease is happening and where it's not?
Sure. So the good news is that sort of the decrease has, in general, followed the path of fentanyl. So that like fentanyl spread from the East Coast to the West Coast, and now the decline in deaths is spreading. And what that suggests is that people are adapting to its presence in the market, but it takes a little while.
Mhm.
And one thing that we really do need to give people credit for is there has been a huge increase in access to naloxone, which is the drug that reverses overdose. And people in harm reduction introduced this drug to the general public. Before that, you could only get it in hospitals or ambulances or from police. Now anybody can get it. It's over the counter, and this is thanks to like the harm reduction movement and the hard work that all these people have been doing to just get it out there. So that has clearly made a difference to some extent. The sort of sad side of the problem is, first of all, that it's still such a high rate. And second of all, that Black people and Native Americans in particular are still seeing increases. And what that says to me is that those populations are experiencing more harm from criminalization, for example, like because going to jail massively increases your overdose risk, um, and less harm reduction because we know that actually Black people and American Indians have less access to naloxone
Mm.
and other harm reduction services and treatment. So, I mean, ironically, because we claim that arresting people is like the way to get people into treatment and we need to do more arrests because we need to get more people into treatment. Well, if arrests were the best way to get into treatment, Black people and American Indians should have the highest rate of treatment access, which
Right,
is not the case.
right.
And it is just, we just keep making the same mistakes over and over again. We just keep thinking that, addiction is defined as compulsive use that continues despite negative outcomes. That's basically continuing despite punishment. We continue to use punishment to try to stop a problem defined by its resistance to punishment. So this is really smart.
Yes, yeah. Before we talk about Trump, I did wanna ask, about what the impacts actually maybe of the Trump administration are, not on this issue, but just beyond the issue. But seeing the cuts that are coming down the pike on Medicaid, seeing the cuts that are coming down the pike on SNAP and food benefits and subsidies, seeing the cuts to Social Security checks that maybe slowed down, or if not stopped, as Trump and the administration continue to peddle the lie that there are people who are 150 years old who are getting their Social Security checks. It might feel really obvious, but can you just explain to everyone how these kinds of cuts will impact drug use, and the epidemic that we've already seen and that we're dealing with?
Sure. So, oftentimes drug epidemics are caused by things like deindustrialization, where people lose their jobs and people have less access to hope and a sense of a meaningful future.
Yeah.
Um, Basically, the more miserable you are and the more your life sucks, the more likely you are to become addicted to something, which is kind of obvious when you think about it because drugs make people feel better, at least at first.
Right.
So, the more you make people's life suck, the more addiction you will see. And we've seen that, in everything from crack to the opioid crisis, to, pretty much any time you see a drug crisis,
Mhm.
behind it is a socioeconomic crisis. Now, that's not to say that that's the only cause of addiction, because obviously middle class, rich people, et cetera, become addicted all the time.
Yep.
But when you destroy the middle class and you destroy people's sense of having a future, it is not surprising that you will see worse drug problems. The other issue, when we talk about Medicaid and Medicare specifically, they are the number one funder of addiction treatment. So if you take away Medicaid and you do things like, oh, you have to work to get Medicaid, then people aren't going to have access to treatment.
Yeah.
And without access to treatment, you will see more deaths and you will see less recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. To say nothing of the fact that like most people on Medicaid are already working. So, but you're absolutely right. It's like if you actually cared, this goes to Trump, about the fentanyl crisis, the opioid epidemic, the only vehicle to actually fund treatment, if you cared about people, which I would argue they don't, um, would be through things like Medicaid, would be through things like Medicare, would be through things like these public health services that we have that are now being, on the chopping block, put on the chopping block. But
No,
let's just,
oh,
yeah,
I was just going to say they think that like, oh, we'll just stop the supply from Canada, which isn't happening, and from Mexico. And the reality is, it would take 1 to 2 tractor trailer trucks to supply the entire United States opioid using population with fentanyl for a year. Think about the
that's
70,
a
80,000.
little, right? That's not that
Yeah, yeah.
much.
No, no,
It's
no, it's a
because it's so
tiny
small.
amount.
Yeah,
It's very small. It's like 50 to 100 times. Some of these things are 10,000 times stronger than heroin.
right.
Like, it makes looking for a needle in a haystack look like an easy thing. And so unless you want to shut down international trade, which by the way, kind of happened during the pandemic and fentanyl still got through, this is not a thing that you can solve by prohibition. And I mean, the irony here is that the one time we did have total control over the supply, i.e., the DEA has total control over the medical supply of opioids in the United States, we created a crisis nonetheless.
Right.
So the idea that you could like fix this by like, bombing cartels or something like that, like, we have had various forms of prohibition for hundreds of years. When people want a substance, they get it. This is called capitalism. We usually are in favor of it.
Well, let's talk about that because we're going to talk about trade a little bit later. But on this idea, the classifying cartels as terrorist organizations. Now, I've had Johan Grillo on, who talks all about cartel violence on this show and the drug war, and he will openly admit that the things that some of these cartels are engaged in, the levels of violence, are very terroristic in and of themselves. The communities that they
Ugh, yeah.
terrorize and all of this, but designating them as a foreign terrorist organization, truly further militarizing this drug war, what is that going to mean for ordinary people? I mean, what is that going to mean for, I don't know, like nonviolent, like low-level dealers or addicts themselves, or just like our overall safety? Like, do you know,
I mean, there are ways to like use law enforcement against cartels that are more effective. Still, it's not the most effective way of dealing with drug problems, but if you wanted to, if you focus on the violence and the harm and the banking, you will do
The
much
banking.
you will
Yes.
do much better than if you try to say like bomb some labs or just like, because if you just take like, oh, we'll just take the kingpins out, you can replace them in 5 minutes. And in
Yeah.
fact, when Mexico did that, when they took them out, they ended up with worse violence and more gangs because people are now fighting over those massive profits. Um, it is not an easy problem, but what the way to, deal with this stuff is more rule of law and more focus on trying to help people not become gangsters
Right.
than on, okay, we'll take out this cartel, because you take out this one, you're going to end up with another one
Yeah.
unless you solve the problem of demand. And there's always going to be a demand to some extent. And the way we deal with that, a drug policy expert that I sometimes massively disagreed with, but sometimes agreed with, used to say that like the absolute worst system for drug control is prohibition. The second worst is commercialization.
Mm.
In between there is where we find the ways that can minimize harm.
I actually, I wanted to, I don't know if we talked about this the last time you were on, but when I did a report on Uruguay's legalization of marijuana. They exactly did what you were saying, sort of studying the models that fully commercialized, like in the United States, that sort of like, yay, now weed is in gummies, and, gummies are literally, children's candy. And again, not to sound like a conservative, but, we do, Uruguay had a massive alcoholism problem, and alcohol was on every corner. And so it was like, how do we responsibly regulate marijuana in a way that can keep children safe, but then also redirect the funds, because it was actually government, not government land that was growing the marijuana. How can we redirect the funds that we make from that into drug treatment programs? And that's exactly what they did. I'm definitely due for a check-in. Uruguay is also it is a country of 3 million people. It's small, 3.3 or something, but like, again, like, this is there are shades of gray. It's not just full blown. I
Yeah.
believe in legalization, but yes, the commercialization is not necessarily always a smart way to go. But that's,
No. And I mean,
um,
like with marijuana, you can argue that if we're going to have commercial alcohol, we should have commercial marijuana to sort of compete with it since it's less harmful. But again, it's right. It's all in the nuance. It's all in the shades of gray. It's all in the way you regulate either effectively or you make things worse.
yeah. Well, let's talk about then the tariffs, right? And the claim. Again, you were talking about, fentanyl's really easy to traffic. It is, you do need very small amounts to make a very potent drug. And that going after like steel, as if fentanyl is being, you know, tucked away into the beams, is just the most ham-fisted, dumbass idea, obviously, that affects all of us. We're going to talk about what it's doing for the economy, later. But what, like, other, I mean, you sort of laid this out, but like, what if you really wanted to go after this illicit market? Can you?
Well, I
Or
mean,
is
one of the ways to do better is to make it a lot easier for people to get safer substitutes.
Yeah,
So make buprenorphine like available over the counter, even potentially. Like make it as easy for people to get the safer substances as it is to get things like fentanyl. Because
yeah,
if when and again, like this is hard to do, but in Liverpool in the UK, when they had a sort of massive heroin problem during the 80s, they started prescribing heroin. They had some prescribing already, but they expanded it, and that actually worked because it outcompeted the drug dealers. You made it such that like people could get a pure stuff without supplying other people with it.
Yeah.
And so like, because a lot of dealing, and this is certainly true, was true in my case, is like people who just want to like have a supply for themselves.
Yeah.
And so if you take away that incentive, you get rid of a lot of the market. But this is, I mean, this is not what we're talking. And I mean, the tariff thing is also so crazy because it is, destroying a lot of people's ability to make a living, which is not a good thing if you want to have less addiction.
Yeah, no, it's crushing the economy and everyone is feeling the effects. Lastly, before I let you go, when it comes to messaging, I've been very obsessed since, the Democrats lost in 2024, the lack of messaging from the party. And you can see it now, the lack of response to the kinds of openly fascistic acts that we are seeing. But when it comes to drug addiction, opioid deaths, Democrats seem to be such a zero as to like what they stand for, what they believe the way out is. It seems to be very like, again, tone deaf to things like harm reduction that have, as you mentioned, given us these drugs that have saved lives. What kind of message, dreaming up a politician, dreaming up a message, what kind of message around these issues would you like to hear coming from an opposition party that actually is
Sure.
serious about saving lives?
Well, we have medications that can cut the death rate in half. We have policies that are starting to work, like giving out more naloxone. We know that the drug war is a failure. 4 or 5 years ago, everybody was admitting that, including the Republicans. We should be standing up in favor of the stuff that we actually know works and that we've seen working. We should not be backing, like, Democrats just backed off on things like decriminalization. There is zero evidence that arresting people for drug possession does anything other than waste money and make people more likely to die and less likely to recover. Nobody stood up for it because they just got scared back into drug war.
Yep.
Drug war was seen until very recently as a universally failed policy. But now it's like, Trump's people are saying that like, oh, this isn't a trade war, it's a drug war, as if that's a good thing. Both of those things are unwinnable. But, it's like, come on, like we actually know stuff that works. Addiction is actually one of the most treatable mental illnesses. Like most people recover if you just keep them alive. So there's all kinds of good messaging we could be doing, but we are afraid to stand up for what works because we have let these attacks, oh, you're soft, as if like being soft and kind isn't what actually does help.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's broadly like focusing on humanizing drug addicts as if we don't all know and love somebody, who survived and made it out, and we want to see more of that. And or have seen or have lost people who never did, which I think is much more common these days. So, again, the Republicans are in the business of dehumanize and criminalize. And so we have to be in the business of humanizing and smartly regulating and helping.
Yeah. I mean, if you're talking about what about the children, I mean, we should be looking, how do we help kids avoid becoming addicted? We spend money on them. We do things like provide like lots of after school activities and parks and sports and, things for kids who don't like sports. And this works. Like Iceland has had a remarkable success with doing drug prevention that basically consists of super duper fabulous after school activities for everybody. Again, is this sexy? No, it is not. But it's actually
it depends on what the production is.
Well, that's true.
You don't know. It might be Chicago with kids. That'd be weird.
Okay, yeah. And the drama kids do need their stuff
Trust
too.
me. But as a stoner drama kid, I can tell you, doesn't always keep you off drugs, but off the harder ones, absolutely. Maia Szalavitz, thank you so much for joining me. Where can people find your work and read you?
Sure. So I am a contributing opinion writer for the New York Times. And if you want to look for sort of all my stuff, MaiaSZ.com usually has stuff across the various freelance things I do.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you as always. Come back soon. Take good care, and thank you all. And now that we're talking a lot about drugs, I want everyone to know this is a pro drug show. Okay, pro drug. Really trying to make this ad read not so weird, but I will say I am reliant on some things, and I want to tell you about them. This is just very awkward for me. Sunset Lake CBD is a wonderful company whose products I love and rely on, especially to go night-night. That's right. Sunset Lake CBD's sleep gummies that are not for children, y'all. They are for adults. Are wonderful. They've got CBD, CBN, and a little bit of you know what inside of them, and they help me honestly get some rest in these fascistic times. I wake up, you guys wake up at 2 in the morning or 3 and are just thinking about Elon for no reason. Not even Elon. First of all, Elon's not sleeping. Okay. This is someone who definitely needs to use the coupon code Frantifa for 20% off their entire order at sunsetlakecbd.com. Get at it. They also have smokables. They have tinctures, which are wonderful. They have tinctures for also animals. If you have a furry friend who is in pain, or is it just needs to chill the F out. We all have that animal that's like, calm down. You know what I'm saying? There's Cybidate for animals as well. They're wonderful. We love them. They donate to great, great causes. So sunsetlakecbd.com, coupon code for Antifa for 20% off your order. Was that okay? Are we okay? Is everyone fine? Cool. With that, oh my God, we've got so much more to talk about, and I'm really excited. She's a good friend. She has a special or an album out you can listen to right now, and she's going to tell me the name of it. Please welcome Jessica Sele. Jessica, what's your album?
It's called Weird Vibes.
Weird Vibes. It's so good that even apropos of you, like nothing, just like you, I didn't know you were going to be on the show. And thank you for stepping in last minute, but I was like distracting myself from actually working on preparing for the show. So I had to go to one of your reels that I love, and I just watched like one of your bits because you're hilarious and I just needed to watch it.
Thank you. And might I say, you are looking very beautiful.
Thank you.
I've been looking at your skin, and I'm like, no wonder like Republicans think that we're drinking like baby blood and stuff when this is our talking head. You know?
I'm not nearly sweaty enough for they drink the baby blood. You know, I was on a show with a dude who straight up drinks blood, or not drinks. They infuse it, Jessica. Let's draw the distinction.
Wait, I was
here.
kidding. Is this a real thing?
Yeah, blood? You know the Blood Boys thing from Silicon Valley? That's actually real. And
I can't hold all the things that are real in my head at this time.
Well, everything you've seen fictionalized in the last 10, 15, 20 years is actually happening now.
Why Black Mirror is so real?
Yeah, why Black Mirror? I mean, Black Mirror is kind at this point.
Why Star Wars real?
Like, I love the idea that you could watch Black Mirror as a billionaire and be like, yeah, why can't I trap my employees in a video game of my making? And
that was the episode I was thinking of too. What a great episode. The like Star Trek. He's like,
yes.
So it's a little Severance-y too. That he has his little incel fantasy Star Trek world.
Right. And they don't have genitals. Sorry, I just had to touch my never mind. You know what, Jessica? We always start the show, even though we're in the middle of it, the same way. And I'm not sure if you've prepped for this, but no prep needed. What are you bitching about today, Tuesday, March 11th?
Well, I'm just gonna say that my dad is blocking me from his Disney Plus account. Which my brother helped me get into because I was watching A Bug's Life. And I just got to say, and I was halfway through and I was going to finish it before this podcast. but I wasn't able to finish it. And might I say that A Bug's Life is incredibly politically relevant
Is
right
it?
now. Yeah, it's very much like the ants have to realize that they outnumber the grasshoppers and
Oh,
that they don't need
yeah.
to be subjugated to this grasshopper control. And the grasshoppers have tariffs.
They have tariffs?
No, I'm just kidding. But they force the ants to collect. And what was with how they had A Bug's Life and Ants at the same year? Remember Ants?
Yeah, Ants was a flop and Bug's Life wasn't. It was when Pixar was like, now we can make anything interesting. And you're like, no, no, no. You did toys before. Now nobody
Well, A
gives a
Bug's
shit
Life
about
is Pixar.
grasshoppers. I know. I know.
Yeah.
Oh, and Ants was like knockoff. Was that DreamWorks? Yeah. Like knockoff
I don't
Pixar.
know
I
who
think it was
copied who,
DreamWorks.
but anyway, I really wanted to finish that movie. And I'm sick. And I will bitch about this since you mentioned it. That I do have to think about. I like wake up thinking about Elon, and just every time I think about Elon, I do have to bitch about it because you said he's not sleeping, and it's like that's the thing. It's like he lives such a terrible life. He subjected Grimes to like some crappy floor mattress. I was reading all about like it wasn't a nice. It's not a nice life, and I just feel like if we're gonna let billionaires exist, they should at least like I watched a documentary on Martha Stewart. Beautiful garden. She's baking turkey in this beautiful pastry. I mean, if I don't believe in billionaires, but at least she has a nice garden.
Make something
Jeez.
pretty. But
Like, God,
one
you're gonna be so ugly.
I know. One man's Martha Stewart or one woman's Martha Stewart garden is one man's Cybertruck. Now, it's hard to understand how the Cybertruck could, like, elicit or spread joy, but somehow it does, I guess. Mostly when you see one painted with a swastika. Um, I
I
agree
have
with
a
that.
feeling.
Yeah, I do think there should be some sort of like child protection services for billionaires that like if their kids are not like living their best life at our expense, then they should be. I mean, in Elon's case, he wouldn't care if he gave up custody, but you know what I'm saying? Like it's like if you're gonna have all this money, at least they should be happy. At least like 12 people should be happy.
I do like the
Or 13.
ex-child that was in the White House. I kind of liked that he was standing there picking his nose.
You're not the president. Just like I need him.
I feel like this kid is like, I'm a little villain. And I'm like, actually, that's kind of cute. When you grow up, we'll see how cute this is or what.
Yeah, it's very Despicable Me, which is a series, an animated series that I'm into. Yes, I am. Okay.
I also like Despicable Me.
Dude, I stand
The
so
kids are
hard.
really, I'm volunteering at a school right now. Thank you so much. And
She just flipped her hair.
all the kids love Despicable Me and Sonic.
Ooh, yeah, I never got into Sonic. Not a Sega family.
Sonic is big right now. The Sonic movies are really big.
Dude, all right. Well, I got to get into them.
So the kids do have something.
Sonic movie. Don't ever say these
we might
older
not have-
generations never gave you anything.
I mean, schools, safety, healthcare, a planet to live on. Da, 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 da. We
Sonic
got
movie.
good
We
Sonic.
made Jim Carrey do 2 Sonic movies for you kids. All right, let's get into something incredibly unfun. So much happened this week. We're foregoing Orange Man Bad, which is, well, we can just play it for you, Jessica. If you haven't been here since Orange Man Bad's been a thing.
I don't know Orange Man Bad.
Well, I feel like I need to subject you to it. It's
very
good.
Thank you so much.
Oh no, that is not what I wanted to subject you to. Hang on. Hang on, here we go. There's Matt in the background. Cute, right?
That is cute.
And then I read out all the things that he did that are bad. But it's okay because we're going to do an in-depth deep dive at all of those things. This is the week where. This is the week where a Columbia graduate student named Mahmoud Khalil has been kidnapped. He has been abducted. He has been detained now in Gina, Louisiana, in a prison after he was taken from his home on Saturday night on Columbia University campus. This is Columbia University housing. He is a permanent resident. He's also Palestinian, and he also has an 8-month pregnant wife. We finally, I guess, made contact with him. I mean, his lawyers were able to make contact with him. And this happened Saturday, but it's important to know the buildup to this moment, Jessica. It's pretty terrifying. Now, the first sort of like thing that happened was on Friday. Columbia University was denied $400 million of federal funding because of allegations of anti-Semitism, again, because of their anti-genocide protests. And now here is maybe the worst senator that we have, a guy who should absolutely put on a big ass fucking suit, tailor it to however broad your dumbass shoulders are. John Fetterman tweeting, Columbia let anti-Semitism run amok to cater to a lunatic fringe and paid provocateurs. Leadership allowed those assholes to take over campus and terrorize Jewish students. Now Columbia pays for its failures, and I support that. So Columbia's already getting it. Now, I'm sure you've seen, Jessica, that like Columbia was, one of the universities that was bending over backwards to accommodate the NYPD, arresting its own student body, allowing whatever tanks and weird ass, vehicles that they drove up on there, making sure they were complying. And when they lost their money, they also were like, oh, no, you're right. You're totally right. We should have lost the money. Columbia spokesperson said the student was reviewing the announcement and pledged to, quote, work with the federal government to restore Columbia's federal funding. We take Columbia's legal obligations seriously and understand how serious this announcement is and are committed to combating anti-Semitism and ensuring the safety and well-being of our students, faculty, and staff. That was Friday. So this is crazy because that was Friday where they were like, oh, yeah, we're taking it really seriously. And we know whenever they say we're about to take something seriously, some shit is going to go down. And we know that also on Friday, a day before he was abducted, this is according to Prem Takur of Zeteo, who's been doing a bunch of awesome reporting on this. Mahmoud Khalil reached out to Columbia for help. He said he couldn't sleep from the threats he was receiving. And he even wrote he feared ICE, quote, might come to my home. They did not give him protection, and he was taken for organizing demonstrations. I mean, this is wild. There's a lot more, Jessica, but I guess I just wanted to get your like before I dig into how bad it goes.
I mean, it's just like, to me, like there's no playing ball. Like there's no like, oh, I'll just concede a little bit. I'll let this police here. I'll let this happen here. It's like you either you just have to push back. You can't just
there's no, I mean, this is like people are rightfully really incensed about this. Michelle Goldberg, whose writing I actually really like, but wrote for the New York Times today, like, this is one of the, the greatest breaches of free speech we've seen. And yet it is not lost on me that the New York Times regularly, demonized anti-genocide protesters, Palestine protesters, and falsely gave, credence to the idea that somehow they were anti-Semitic. And so we've seen, it's not like this came out of nowhere. This is thanks to months and months and months of college administrators saying, oh, you're right. Well, maybe the Intifada does call for the death of all Jews, even though it totally doesn't, and maybe the Jewish students on our campus did feel unsafe in theory when they told us they did, when actually like family members of other students were dying in Gaza. Like, it's just, this is all the liberal establishment capitulating to fascism, even under, Joe Biden. And so now, and this is where it gets insane, the hang on Friday, we now know that a Twitter account, really just like a group of psycho-Zionists, called Documenting Jew Hatred on Campus at Columbia University, so very on the nose, they tweeted at Secretary of State Marco Rubio, saying, please remove and revoke Mahmoud Khalil's visa. And they quote tweet the video of him at Barnard College protesting. He was orchestrating an illegal takeover. He's managed to get on campus despite not being a student. Well, he's a student at Columbia. Barnard's part of Columbia. So that's the day before he then gets swept up and disappeared. And of course, now this is Marco Rubio saying, we will revoke the visas and or green cards of Hamas supporters in America so they can be deported. Donald Trump truthing, following my previously signed executive orders, I proudly apprehended and detained. Like, when there's a clearly pregnant woman next to a man you're hauling away, I don't feel like there's like just pride wouldn't be part of, like, I wouldn't want to look in the mirror as an ICE agent and be like, yes, I did it.
Yeah, it's disgusting. I just don't understand how, I mean, I guess I always go back to like, what are Trump supporters thinking now? Are they thinking like, cool, we're still the free speech party because Tony Hinchcliffe tells
got a
Netflix
special, by the way.
So awesome. I'm so glad that an open mic is going to be on Netflix. That's great. It's a great time to be a comedian. I'm so proud of what comedy is contributing to America at this time. It's so weird how much comedians have like been leveraged as like they're not getting to say what they want.
Well, yeah, I mean,
now somebody's being detained.
I mean, this, like, yes, now they're being detained, and like, it is not lost on me that I am living in the same house. Like, if ICE comes to my door and for Matt, because of things he said, supporting, Palestine, I'll be like, I don't know him. He's just, you can also take the kid. Just go take them. I have nothing to do with it. No, but it is just like, yeah. It's also
like so funny to me, the idea of them coming for Matt. I mean, fascism is just so ridiculous.
But they might straight up, because he,
no, it wouldn't be funny, but it's just like, it's just Matt. Jesus. he's freaking out right now because he has a cold. You know who else has a cold right now is me.
I know. Me too. You can hear it. Yeah, Matt can't get up before 10 in the morning. You really shouldn't be afraid of him. It's really funny. No, exactly. And of course, but this is what they said they were going to do. Many are not students. They're paid agitators. Will find, apprehend, and deport these terrorist sympathizers from our country, never to return again. If you support terrorism, including the slaughtering of innocent men, women, and children, your presence is contrary to our national and foreign policy interests, and you're not welcome here. We expect every one of the American colleges and universities to comply. Thank you. Slaughtering, if you support the slaughtering of men, women, and children, you don't belong here. Like, I don't hate that statement.
Yeah.
That's not what Mahmoud Khalil was doing. That, in fact, is U.S. foreign policy when it comes to supporting Israel. And that is now currently still blocking any aid into Gaza. And has been, of course, targeting hospitals, schools, refugee camps, babies in their incubators, pregnant women, on and on and on and on. So, I mean, it's just like, Jessica, I just wonder, like, what it is to be a liberal Zionist right now, like what it is to even be someone who is like, well, the campuses, I don't know, they're very scary and they don't like Jews and I feel they're unsafe and I'm not even a student, but I feel unsafe. And then you see this, and
right.
either, and of course, because liberal Zionists can never be wrong because they're always right in their heart, in theory, they think they're right. In practice, very wrong. But like, I can only imagine they're probably like, well, that's what you get for not voting for Kamala Harris, even though many, many, many people did vote for Kamala Harris, including me trying to get everyone to fucking vote for fucking Kamala Harris.
I made phone calls. I said, please just vote for Kamala. But yeah, I really need liberal Zionists to stand up right now and be like, oh, like that we're not for.
We're not for putting out the official White House Twitter, Shalom Mahmoud.
God.
And then quoting, "We will fully apprehend and deport these terrorist sympathizers from our country, never to return again. Call your electeds now," especially the ones who took AIPAC money, because they know who they are. We know who they are, because this is pretty much the kind of money that they're taking from. Some Democrats are showing up. Senate Judiciary Democrats tweeted, "Free Mahmoud Khalil." That's pretty good. But this is crazy, Jessica, because we're talking about the hypocrisy of the right saying, oh, we believe in free speech, but of course, when it comes to Palestine, no. And here's Ann Coulter being correct. She says, "There's almost no one I don't want to deport, but unless they've committed a crime, isn't this a violation of the First Amendment?" Trying to do my Ann.
That was pretty good. That was a
Yeah,
pretty good
there's
answer.
Yeah. God.
Yeah, we're blowing past Ann Coulter evil.
When someone who's like, no, look, I am a Nazi. Like, I would deport literally anyone. You got brown skin, adios. But if they didn't commit a crime, i.e., if all they were doing was organizing a demonstration, which is still legal, this seems like a violation of the First Amendment, to say nothing else.
Yeah, I want to make a little chart that's like the different levels of evil that we're surpassing. And it's like, oh, Ann Coulter's not evil enough. Who else isn't evil enough?
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. It's like there's only Ann Coulter's like a true believer. Like, Rubio, on the other hand, I think is not. And Rubio, we know, gets tons of money from AIPAC. And I don't imagine Ann Coulter's getting that much funding from pro-Israel groups at this point. I mean, Ann Coulter might be quite literally in the Candace Owens side of all this, like the actual anti-Semites who are against supporting Israel. So who knows? But yes, we have lost Ann Coulter. Yeah, man, it's terrifying. And Colombia to let's see if they've changed their tune. No. This is Caroline Leavitt, again, the spokesperson for the White House, said Columbia University has been given the names of other individuals who've engaged in pro-Hamas activity, and they are refusing to help DHS identify those individuals on campus. Okay, so maybe they are sticking up for their students. So they're not at least ratting out their students to DHS, especially now after they probably didn't protect one of them. But Columbia then said, we will support our community in response to all this, by the way. I understand the distress many of you are feeling about the presence of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents on the streets around campus. I feel it too, and I'm working with our team to manage the response. Are they going to have support groups? If you want to get together and do some sharing, we each can hold the talking stick right before you get hauled away by ICE. We will follow the law, as has always been the case, and rumors suggesting that any member of Columbia leadership requested the presence of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents on or near campus are false. It remains the longstanding practice of the university and the practice, basically to comply with law enforcement. And they must have a warrant to enter non-public universities, including residential university buildings. So this could have been illegal. We don't know.
Cool.
Don't open up to ICE. And yet they did say that they would follow the law. So let's say that they come back. Let's say that DHS comes back and are like, okay, well, here are assigned warrants for all the people who coordinated the Palestine protests. Can we have your students now? They'd be like, Fine. Here you go.
Really?
I mean, if they're saying they're following the law, they're not doing the thing which you would expect maybe a university in a blue city, in a blue state, in the middle of fascist disappearing, law-abiding citizens to say, no, we're not going to comply. I don't give a shit if you have a warrant. We protect our students first and foremost, and we protect their right to, exercise their First Amendments. So
aren't schools supposed to be like the radical place?
allegedly,
Maybe
allegedly. I mean, this is again, and all of this is like, we could talk about this for a long time. And I have, if you guys haven't seen my discussion with Robin D.G. Kelly, professor at UCLA, this is not where it ends. It's going to be Palestine today. It's going to be talking about the Trump administration tomorrow. It's going to be giving up trans students on Wednesday. Like, it is all of it. This is a trial balloon. It always has been. And they're testing the limits of what they can do. And I don't want to say it's a massive distraction from their failings, but it is a distraction from the fact that they are failing us in every other possible way. And let's turn to that. Let's turn to it, Jessica. I don't know if you've been following this, but Canada's mad.
that's crazy. Takes a lot to make Canada. I've never seen Canada mad before.
I haven't either. And I'm like, oh, like I guess, maybe they were peeved at all the, South Park making fun of them and all this, but like, I guess they were that was all friendly joshing. Now they're fed up. All right. Canadians are not playing around. Canada is not playing around.
And they're not sorry.
And they're not sorry. The United States is gonna be sorry, and we're gonna have a lot of sorries coming up. So
Canada finally not sorry anymore.
Sorry, not sorry. The trade war is coming, y'all. We are fully in the middle of it, and Canada is pissed as hell about being called possibly the 51st state. It's upending their politics to the point of like completely changing the whole landscape. Also, like, a month ago, conservatives in Canada looked like they were going to sail to victory after Justin Trudeau resigned from the prime minister. Not so. Liberals are in fact in charge. They are going to hold elections soon. They have a new prime minister, Mark Carney. He'll be running in that election. And actually, the conservatives who were up like 20 points only like a month ago are now trailing Carney. And it's all because of the tariffs. And I just want to play a little bit of oh no, where's our boy? Oh yeah, I want to play a little bit of our boy Doug Ford of Ontario. Doug, I think, explains this very, very well. Ontario is the most populated province in the country, in Canada. It gives electricity to Michigan, Minnesota, and New York. And this week, in response to these tariffs, they've decided they're going to add 25% to all electricity sales into the United States. And today, Trump is now upping its tariffs on steel and aluminum, to 50%. So he's adding 25% more. Now he's doing 50. Do I hear 75? But here is Doug Ford explaining why the hell they're doing this and why Canada is sorry, not sorry.
Critical minerals. I will stop shipments going into the.
Here we go.
It will shut down on the critical minerals. I will stop shipments going into the U.S. for nickel. It will shut down manufacturing because 50% of the nickel you use is coming out of Ontario. I've ordered our bureaucrats to cut off tens of billions of dollars of contracts that we have with the U.S. We are the largest purchaser of alcohol in the world. We buy over 3,600 products from 35 states. I talked to the governor of Kentucky and Mitch McConnell, don't touch our bourbon. I'm going after absolutely everything. And I don't want to. We keep the lights on to 1.5 million homes and manufacturing in New York, in Michigan, and in Minnesota. If he wants to destroy our economy and our families, I will shut down the electricity going down to the U.S. And I'm telling you, we will do it.
You are ready, sir, to go to war, to go to a trade war with the United States, with the Trump administration.
It's the last thing we want to do. It's one person that's coming to attack us economically. Your closest friend, your treasured ally that will stand shoulder to shoulder with you in every situation you faced. And he's attacking the person, his number one customer.
I love the way he said his number one customer he's attacking, because that's a really good way to to frame this. And we've seen in Ontario, the Ontario Liquor Board, I believe, who's not going to buy any more liquor from the United States. They're like the biggest liquor distributors in Canada. And there are now stores that are straight pulling Kentucky bourbon off of the shelves. You know, and it's incredible. I want to finish watching this.
There's no country in the world that buys more products off the U.S. than we do. We're the number one trading customer to 28 states. And a lot of them are red states. They're going to feel the pain like they've never felt before. We're going to feel the pain. But I'll tell you, Canadians are resilient. We're strong. We're proud. And we're going to fight back like they've never seen before. And I'm sorry to the American people that
Yes.
the president has decided to do this. I apologize, but he's giving us no choice.
Oh, okay. I'm
Well,
sorry.
they're a little sorry.
A little
They're
sorry.
a little sorry still, which is nice to hear. I just wish that like I had any hope of anything making a difference in like Trump supporters' support of what's happening, because I think it's so culty that like their lights could go off, anything could happen. They'll be like in a cult, you follow them to the end till
Right. Till someone tells you to drink their jungle juice and you're like, okay,
I'm ready to go.
I'm ready to go. I'm ready to ascend. I mean, you're not wrong, but we are seeing the backlash because of stonks, which we're going to get to. But before we do, I mean, in terms of like Canada, like this is really giving them a sense of nationalism, of a break from, you know, like the United States. This I saw earlier on Twitter. Canadian shoppers are starting a new habit after checking an item. If it's a US product, they return it to the shelf upside down and turn several more of the same item upside down so the next shopper knows to skip that product. Dude, they're doing BDS on us. And I'm calling anti-Semitism. I think it's anti-Semitic, really, what they're doing. This is wild.
I'm just so confused all the time. Like I really like I think that this is everything right now is affecting like calling things anti-Semitic, but also like being a Nazi and getting a Nazi haircut and all this and doing Nazi salutes. I think it's smoothing out a part of my brain. Like I feel
No, the word certainly doesn't mean much right now.
Words no mean.
Words don't mean what we think words mean. Sorry, but Canada, and look, what's crazy about this is like today, by the way, Donald Trump did say that he wanted Canada to become its 51st state. Again, he's whatever, the craziest shit he says, he will double down on it a bunch of times. And again, some people are like, okay, the tariffs aren't in effect yet. No, they are. There are rounds of tariffs. They're coming at different industries at different times. Trump is very confusing and confused when it comes to which tariffs he's going to slap and when. He wants Canada and Mexico to be compliant with USMCR, which was this trade deal that he negotiated during his first term. But which products are compliant with USMCR are confusing. Folks don't know which products it does apply to. It doesn't matter. He just is in love with tariffs. It's not even about fentanyl, like we talked about earlier. He's just obsessed with them. And I think in the, spheres of influence, a la kleptocracy in Russia and Russia having its sphere of influence, Trump wants his sphere of influence, and that includes Canada, right? And especially Canada and Mexico, but Mexico's like too many brown people. So, but Canada, white, Yes, there are brown people, but we'll just ignore them like we do the ones here. And so here's Caroline Leavitt doubling down on this idea that, yeah, Trump does, as he said in his Truth Social today, want Canada to be the 51st state.
He believes that Canadians would benefit greatly from becoming the 51st state of the United States of America. And I actually looked into some of the research about the cost of living in Canada, and the cost of living is much higher than it is here in the United States of America. The average cost of a home in Canada is much higher. In Quebec, the highest tax rate for an income of $150,000 or more is 53.3%, more than half of Canadians' incomes they are being taxed on. So the president has made it clear that he believes Canadians would be better served economically, militarily, if they were to become the 51st state of the United States of America. Reagan. Thank you, Caroline.
That's a big state, by the way. That's a really big 51st state. That's a
Yeah.
huge state.
I want to break it up into like 3, like I feel like at least obviously this is just amazing to me. I love that she's like they would benefit militarily. Like, oh, what, how? To protect them from whom? Us? Like, this is the most mafia shit ever. It's like, gee, it'd be a shame if you invaded by your neighbors to the south. And like, that's you. You'd be doing the invading. Yeah, I know. And the whole like, oh, the cost of living is high. Yeah, man. The cost of living is high. Also, they have universal health care. And I love that she explains like, oh, wow, if you make over 150,000, you're paying all this money in taxes. Yeah. And you're getting it back in the fact that, you still have a government and shit that tries to do things for you. Maybe we should increase our top tax rate on people making a lot of money. No, we're going to give a bunch of billionaires a tax break in the next budget. Cool.
No problem.
My God, this is, I just love, I love that Canada finally reached its breaking point. They were like, ha, I'm not playing now. Like, I'm done.
It's just wild. It's just unbelievable. I don't even have anything to say about any of this, to be honest. I'm just like, I'm smooth braining over here.
That's okay, like, dude. That's
I'm just like, okay. Yeah, let's invade Canada. I have no understanding of that.
How would that even work? They have all the moose, and I thought we needed moose. They're mounted.
I was watching Alone, and some guy killed a moose, and then he still was starving. All he was eating was moose. They don't even have any fat on him.
Oh,
what
yeah,
good is a moose? Too lean. There's no reason to invade Canada.
Well, okay. When you talk about, there being no impact, there's certainly an impact. This week, it is very clear the country, because of all this tariffs back and forth insanity, which, by the way, a commenter, oh God, I lost it, but basically mentioned that maybe this is by design, that maybe, Trump and or someone close to him are playing the stock market because it is going up and down, up and down, up and down. It doesn't know where it's going. And in fact, it's going mostly in one direction, which is down.
Breaking news, what started as an ugly day on Wall Street has turned downright hideous. Broad-based selling across the board. And, you could call it a sinkhole that's opened up under the NASDAQ. With 59 minutes left to trade, the tech-heavy index is down. This is a big percentage loss here, 4.6% or 845 points.
March 10th, Monday, was NASDAQ's worst day since 2022, falling 4%. The S&P fell 500, fell by almost 3%, not 500%, but 900 points in total. A sinkhole underneath Wall Street, which is like, honestly, the Occupy Wall Street bitch in me is like, yes, finally.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm like,
yeah, like
it's a stock market quicksand.
Goodbye, worst people on the planet. But no, obviously it matters. People
sink down into hell where you belong.
Exactly. No, they'll still trade down there.
No, I do understand that stocks are something that has an effect on something. Is that correct?
They generally, I mean, they have their things that affect other things. But it's important to say. say a couple things. Number one, only 10% of the American public owns stock. So that's important. However, a lot of people do have their retirement savings, their 401ks, their IRAs, their Roths, whatever, invested, right? In some of it in the stock market. It matters. So people's, depending on how close you are to retirement, this is very bad for you. And it could be very bad for you. And it's so fun, Jessica, because if we think that, like, I love that, like, if like the Fox business is freaking out about this, what do they think about creating a whole reserve in crypto? Like, how are our fluctuations going to behave when our entire Federal Reserve is just in Bitcoin? Like, we're going to be so fucked. But
how are you going to ice bath your way out of this one?
Exactly.
Guys?
You can't infrared sauna treatment your way out. But so Donald Trump, who is notoriously said the stock market matters, that, like, oh my God, if Biden gets elected and the stock market's gonna
That's like his thing. He even
his-
tweeted, like, when Biden got elected, he was like, if the stock goes down this much, a president should be impeached or something.
yes.
And now, okay.
And I'm like, oh, that'd be so cute if we didn't have Democrats, being Democrats, because they definitely won't. They won't impeach him over Doge, which is like the thing you really should. But here's Trump over the weekend saying to Fox that, like, you don't pay attention to the stock market.
Before you came into the Oval Office the first time, you were a very successful businessman, very successful real estate executive. And a lot of people said, oh, this is the business president. This is it. He's watching the stock market. He knows all about, he doesn't want the market to go down. And now we've got tariffs and the market has been going down.
Well, not much. I mean, in all fairness,
you said, look, we're going to have a disruption, but we're okay with that. Is that what you meant? The stock market going down was the disruption? What other disruption were you alluding to?
Look, what I have to do is build a strong country. You can't really watch the stock market. If you look at China, they have a 100-year perspective.
I've never met anyone who loves China harder than Trump. Like, he just really is envious of China. Look, they've got a 100-year perspective, and I'm going to be here for at least another 30. So you can't really look at the stock market, Jessica. You can't. It's not an indicator of anything, except when I say it's an indicator.
Yeah, I thought you said it. I thought when he said it was, and that was like his thing.
I thought that's all his thing.
Yeah.
During COVID, when people were dying, when there were freezer trucks full of bodies in Manhattan, Donald Trump was like, look at the stock market. It's going really well. What do you mean shut down the economy? Why? You know what I'm saying? Like, look at the trading on ice trucks. It's going great. The mobile morgue industry is really booming. And he continued, though, Jessica, because this is all part of what Trump and Elon are doing, which is we need to cause pain. Everyone's going to feel this pain. And that is an important part of our process. What is our process? What are we doing? We don't really know, but we'll tell you when we get there.
And I want to ask you about Ukraine and the blow up the other day with Zelensky. Let me stay on the economy for a moment, because there are rising worries about a slowdown. You've got the Atlanta Federal Reserve saying we're going to have a contraction in the first quarter. Look, I know that you inherited a mess, and you said that the other night.
I've only been here,
but are you expecting a recession this year?
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition, because what we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America. That's a big thing. And there are always periods of, it takes a little time. It takes a little time. But I think it should be great for us. I mean, I think it should be great. It's going to be great ultimately for the farmer. Don't forget, I made.
Why is like podcasts just like me sitting on things with my friends as they torture me?
Thank you for jumping in. Why do you torture me so? Subscribe to the Bitchuation Room.
So upsetting. And it's like, are people like, okay, good, got you. I'll suffer through this so that wealth will return and I'll be rich. And then there's a golden toilet. I'm just like, I know people are saying there's a backlash, all this, and that people are waking up. But I waited for that the whole time, Trump's first presidency, and it seems like nothing can happen that people will go like, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's doing.
No, trust me. This time they're for serious mad at him though. I mean, like, they got
Okay.
mad at him after the COVID deaths, and then they forgave him, and then they got mad at him after January 6th when he tried to, overturn a democratic election using a mob. But this time they're like actually mad at him, and he's definitely gonna face the music and all of the consequences.
Trump, I can't stay mad at you.
Oh,
Look at your face.
I was a little
how-
bit mad. But then when my entire farm fell fallow and I couldn't sell to anybody and I lost my health care, I realized it's all part of the process. When I'm starting to enter into Elon's poor people turn to fuel machine, even to halfway, like my torso was still very loyal, even though my legs were mad. It's true. Town halls are being flooded, and I am an optimist, and I do believe people are turning on Trump, and I do believe we have to explain to them, yes, capitalism be like that, and like billionaires be like that. Let me hold hand and let us, support all of these there's Bernie Sanders, and that's about it. And is he too old? I don't know.
Also, like, you not billionaire. Also, it's not even that good to be a billionaire. Sometimes you don't even have a garden. You can have a garden, not even be a billionaire.
Dude, it's actually bad to be a billionaire. It's really important actually to understand that all the money in the world can buy you hair, but it can't buy you happiness. And Elon Musk this week is having a real bad one, which is annoying.
Bad haircut, man.
Oh yeah, did he get I don't know if that was an old photo that was circulating, Jessica.
Was that not real?
No, it was real, but I think it was old because I remember it, and he was like, he at that point looked like Skeeter from Doug. What is it? What is that show?
Yeah,
Doug? Anyway, but no, Elon Musk is having a really bad week, which is very annoying because so are all the people that he has summarily fired. So are all the people whose lives have been upended by Doggy and their idiocy. But the stock market is crashing, and that includes Tesla stock prices. The price is down 50%, which it obviously was overinflated because of the election. But his personal net worth is down $132 billion. SpaceX failed another launch the other day. There was two. That's been two since the beginning of the year. Twitter has experienced massive outages, which he's now blaming on Ukraine. Which, if it was Ukraine, that's super dope. Keep going. And here is him talking to Larry Kudlow of Fox News. And his response is wild. Larry's like, so how are things going for your businesses, given that, you're here doing all this fuck shit in the government? And also, by the way, he apparently is not sleeping. That's the other thing. He's not sleeping. And that's very clear because he's almost in tears. Take a look.
Call to action. You're hearing a call to action.
Yeah.
You giving up your other stuff? I mean, how are you running your other businesses?
With great difficulty. Yeah, I mean.
But there's no turning back, you're saying?
I'm just here trying to make government more efficient, eliminate waste and fraud, and so far we're making good progress.
Oh, if you're listening, is biting his lip. He's biting the corner of his mouth because he's about to cry because he says, with great difficulty, I'm running my other businesses. This little boy made too many wishes on the monkey paw, and now it is forsaking him. He has caught up to the car as a little doggy, and he is now fully under its wheel. He's in over his head. And this is what we're talking about, Jessica, when it comes to being a billionaire. And like, at least you could personally be happy. But this is a miserable fuck who's making us all miserable, and he's not even happy or confident or clear about what it is he's actually doing.
Yeah, I almost felt bad for him in this way where it's just like, deep down, you're just a little boy who wasn't hugged by your father.
Yes.
And you don't even know how to grow a garden. Maybe show him how to grow. I mean, you should see Martha Stewart's garden. But I just love that, like, not even space wants him anymore. It's like, you can't come up here.
Down. I know. I really think he should be on the next test flight, though, if I'm being honest. I think it'd be the...
I feel done with him personally.
Yeah, I'm over it. I'm over him. Come over him. Yeah, he Catch a Butterfly on Twitch says didn't he say there's gonna be pain? That's right. Field of Financial Pain, Muskrat. Yeah, he did. He said there would be pain.
Right.
This is it. And you know what those tears felt like to me? It felt like everyone's so ungrateful, like I'm just here trying to make the Doge committee work.
Like, did you think people would like the Doge? I
trying to do Doge.
I mean, Elon is. I've assumed that he's trying to be hated and trying, like, some of the things he's doing. Like, I'm like, I assume that you're just like baiting us, like,
Yeah.
and he's just like, what? You don't like it? And I'm like, you doing the worst things that I haven't even been able to imagine how crazy and dumb things
Plus,
could be.
like, Nazi salutes.
Yeah.
Nobody likes this. Isn't that the point of being a troll? Like, don't you relish in hurting other people? Isn't it about liberal tears? That liberal tears will fill the Gulf of America, and now he's like, oh, with great difficulty. Everything's so hard. And it's just, oh, and by the way, I don't know if I have a photo of this, but Donald Trump, to lift Elon's spirits, and to make him feel a little bit less bad, he's got a new car, guys. Don't worry, Jessica has a new car. Oh, I don't want to watch an ad. Oops. Hang on. I'm glad I'm everything's fine. Pay no attention because I've also got an ad blaring at me. Trump has bought a Tesla. Oh my God, I hate everything. Yes, Trump bought a new Tesla. He buys a Tesla to make a statement about the Musk backlash. Beautiful. He was buying a Tesla vehicle as he doubled down on his support of Elon Musk. I'm going to buy a Tesla because number one, it's a great product. It's as good as it gets. Number two, because this man, Elon, has devoted his energy and his life to doing this. And I think he has been treated very unfairly. Oh God. We're only a month and a half into this and everyone's already being treated unfairly.
I can't believe we're only a month and a half into this.
Yeah, I know. If we're a month and a half into this and motherfuckers are always like, you're just so ungrateful. You're right. We don't deserve you. You know where you should go? Mars. Go away. I'm like, I can't even wish him on like Germany, but like go somewhere else. Like, we don't deserve you, dog. But yeah, that is the state of Elon. That's the state of Tesla. Things are bad. And now he is bringing that model of success to the rest of the government. Jessica, any final words before we sign off of the torture that I've put you through this hour and a half?
Well, I guess, yes, my cortisol is elevated. But that's okay because I kind of have I would say a couple weeks ago I didn't have a lot of hope, but now I have hope, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's just where I'm at hormonally in my monthly time. I'm allowed a little bit of hope, but it feels random. It just feels like my body's like, actually, we're gonna take them down. I don't know why.
Dude, that was like 5 minutes, and now you're back up again. You're like
No, my
you got some you've got like the
high,
stock
but
market up in
yeah,
your cortisol levels are like the stonks.
we just had to wait for it to come back up. Just be patient.
No, it is affecting everyone. Things are going to get bad, but like the fact that it is happening quickly gives me a little bit more hope that he will not. Certainly the midterms are going to be a blowout, and I don't even know if he's going. I predict we are not going to get to the midterms without an impeachment or a massive upheaval and an ousting. Look, we've seen it before, and if this country is obsessed with Argentina as a model, well, shit, man, they went through 10 presidents in 2 weeks during their economic crash, so we can do the same. Let's keep cycling through till we get a better version, and then we just land on AOC.
I'm for that.
Yeah, we will try for it. And in the meantime, where can people like find you, see you live, check you out?
Yeah, I am still on Instagram at Jessica Sele, hanging out with the Zucks, and you can follow me there. I usually post shows there. I also have the album Weird Vibes. I also am starting a new podcast that should be out very soon. It's called Some Timeline, because we sure are on some timeline, and it's just me being a weirdo with other weirdos. And
If it's a Jessica Sele podcast, you know it's going to be a good listen. And everybody check out Weird Vibes. I cannot say enough of it. Maybe support it on Bandcamp, jessicasele.bandcamp.com.
yeah, honestly, just buy it.
Buy it.
Just buy my album.
It's
I've been out sick
$7.
from work, and I need someone to just buy my album.
Buy the album. It's $7 on Bandcamp. Go support comics who again don't have Netflix specials because they called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Love you, Jessica. See you very, very soon. And love y'all. Let's read some comments and then, F off into this good night. Snicked724, thanks for the super chat. Seems like this present administration is taking its marching orders from Hollywood via Idiocracy and Canadian Bacon. We're so doomed. I don't remember. I think I saw Canadian Bacon once. Chris Corcoran says, did you see the Snow White premiere is removing press because of its stars, Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot? Zegler mildly criticized the OG movie and is pro-Palestine. Gal is a rabid Zionist, not the same. No, obviously not. I forgot they were like that. Gal Gadot was in that film. That is crazy. I thought she was. I'm not following all of my, like free speech crackdowns on Palestine in Hollywood. But that's crazy. Maybe we'll talk about that tomorrow on the bonus show. Rachel Atwood, at a lot of colleges, students and faculty and staff are afraid to interact with each other outside of class lest they get ice on their tail or defunded. Yeah, no shit. I mean, what's crazy is like me, us in the early 2000s, the idea that our university would sell us out or not protect us or allow ICE to raid us based on where we stood against the Iraq war, against the Afghanistan war. Like that's just really unreal and wild. And everyone needs to make sure you call your congressperson and take action and take to the streets to demand that Mahmoud Khalil is released. Fascist Killa on Twitch. I'm surprised that right wingers didn't come out and say we're going to call maple syrup MAGA syrup now. Just give them time. Colin Chepka says Doug Ford sucks and back down on this today. Maybe. I mean, sorry, not maybe. That makes sense. I thought I saw him again say we would never be the 51st state, blah, blah, blah. But if Trump is like, okay, 50% tariffs, like Canada doesn't have the upper hand. I mean, he basically admitted like that we will feel pain too, right? But at least I'll have my dignity. So yeah, let's follow that. Maybe he did back down. And the Shmooby Dragon, we don't like Doug Ford, but on this, he's doing pretty well. Yeah, I mean, none of these people, right? I mean, like, I think, like, Mark, who's the new prime minister, Carney is, like, a former banker. Like, we don't celebrate bankers, but, like, at least bankers sort of know how, like, financial markets work. Isn't that sort of the bare minimum? Flutterflea 007, here's to hoping the Ides of March take him. Agreed. And John Dexter was the one who said they're making money from stonk market manipulation. Probably. Not a people says we're pissed. Clearly Canadian. Even the Quebecois are united. Yeah, do the Quebecois intra-fight? I thought they just fight with the rest of Canada. Feminist says, I am worried about RFK ripping away pain control, mental health drugs, pretty much any controlled substance. And HRT, obviously, he's going to hurt and kill so many already sick and disabled people. Yes, absolutely. And then Turd Nugent, I meant to, first of all, Turd Nugent is the best name, just is the best name. And thank you for being a member. Suboxone saved my life, clean for 14 years, other than cannabis. Congratulations, that is massive to you. And look, you give me California sober, that's fine. I'm not coming down on that. And Grandma Sunshine Dragon says, hi. Oh, hi, Franny, Maya, Chatter, Lurkers, cigarettes more addictive than heroin, and Epiphany tariff, terrified. Need I say more? I think not. Oddly Magical Brandy says, keep up the amazing work. We need more spoken truth to power. Thank you so much. And I'm going to shout these other folks out in the fart song portion of the show. Thank you, everybody. All the patrons at $10 or more getting this shout out. All the people who subscribed on Substack. I hope we have Substack subscribers. Let's go, everybody. This is the fart song. Yeah. Thank you. Tracy Ava for upgrading your pledge, to Teresa Ann Clark also for upgrading. We don't have any new patrons at $10 or more, but it could be you. We also don't have any Substackers. Suddenly, this is very sad. God damn it. But Tanya Dodgers gave out 5 subs. Thank you so much, Tanya. That is incredibly generous of you. Thank you, Serious Biz, for that super sticker. You know what it is. Thank you to Holy Beer Dragon giving out 5 subs over on Twitch. Also resubscribing. Frantifa is a goat. Pickle Hippie resubscribed, 3 months strong. Thank you to Astro Wolves for subscribing. And Crash Overdrive 330 subscribed over on Twitch. And that is the conclusion of our thanks. We stream Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. We've got some great shows coming up, so you don't want to miss them. Thank you to Paige Omek, our producer, to Brent Godin, our YouTube and Facebook extraordinaire. Thank you to Andy Vasoyan, as always. In fact, I think you might be seeing Andy very soon on this show. Follow the pod everywhere. Blue Sky, Twitter, and Instagram, Bituation Room, Bituation Pod, Bituation, whatever. Just type in Bituation, you'll find it. Thank you guys so much. Remember to fight the power, fuck the patriarchy, free Palestine, even if it gets us locked up. God damn it. And don't just bitch about it. Be about it. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye. Oh, I'm gonna say bye. Okay, I'm gonna do this. Wait. Here we go. Bye-bye.